You're in the middle of an argument. Somebody just said something that landed hard, and a second ago, you had 100 things to say back. You could feel them lined up, ready. Now your mind is completely blank. Not thinking of a comeback. Not choosing to stay quiet, just blank. Like someone cut the power. Not one of those 100 things is anywhere to be found. Your face goes flat. Your voice, if it comes out at all, sounds far away, like it's coming from somewhere outside your own body. The other person keeps talking. You're just standing there. Nodding, maybe. Because nodding doesn't require finding any words. Later, hours later, maybe at 2 in the morning, all of it finally shows up. Everything you should have said, arriving all at once, useless, because the moment is long over. You lie there rehearsing a conversation that already ended without you. Here's what almost everyone gets wrong about that blank space. It looks like giving up. It looks like you stopped caring, or worse, that you agree. You don't. Your system just ran out of options and did the only thing left available to it. It picked the one response left on the shelf when the other two were already taken. Think about a circuit breaker in a house. When too much power tries to move through the wires at once, the breaker doesn't ask permission. It trips. The lights go out on purpose to stop the whole system from burning down. That's what a shutdown is. Not a system failing, a system protecting itself the only way it knows how, by cutting the power before the overload does real damage. Nobody looks at a tripped breaker and calls the house broken. They just reset it and move on. Here's the fastest way to understand your own biology when this happens. Fight and flight are your two obvious circuits, but there's a third one, older and quieter, and it only switches on when the first two aren't available. You can't run from the person across the table, and you can't out-argue a shutdown once it's already started. The first thing it looks like is this. Your words just stop existing. Mid-sentence, sometimes mid-word, the argument you were building simply vanishes. Not because you decided to hold back. The words are gone, like a page torn out of a notebook. And no amount of trying gets them back in that moment. You can feel yourself reaching for the sentence and coming back with nothing. This never happens when the stakes are low. It only shows up when the moment matters the most. Right when you need your voice the most. Right when losing it costs you something real. The second thing is stranger. Your own body starts to feel like it belongs to someone else. You can hear the conversation still happening around you, but it sounds distant, muffled, like you're underwater. Your hands feel far from your arms. People describe it as watching themselves from a few feet outside their own body, like a character on a screen instead of a person in the room. That's not you checking out because you don't care. That's dissociation, your nervous system's oldest trick for surviving something it can't fight and can't flee. It puts a pane of glass between you and the moment so the moment can't fully reach you. This is Stephen Porges, the researcher who mapped out what he called the polyvagal ladder. Fight and flight sit on one rung, but underneath them is an older rung entirely, one we share with almost every animal that ever froze instead of running, the same reflex behind a rabbit going still in tall grass instead of bolting. The third thing arrives late, and it arrives loud. Once you're safe again, alone in your car or lying in bed, the flood finally comes. Every sentence you couldn't find in the moment shows up perfectly formed, hours too late, replaying on a loop you can't turn off, each version a little sharper and a little more devastating than the last. That delay isn't a coincidence. Your system couldn't spare the processing power for eloquence while it was busy keeping you safe. The words were never lost. They were just parked until it was finally safe enough to hand them back to you. That's why they feel so vivid at 2 a.m. Your system finally has the spare capacity to let you have them. The fourth thing is the one that does the most damage to how people see you, and it's the exact opposite of what it looks like. People read your silence as not caring. It's actually the opposite. The person across from you sees stillness and assumes indifference or agreement, or that you've simply stopped trying. Meanwhile, you are working harder than you have all day, just not in a way anyone can see from the outside. Your heart rate is up. Your muscles are braced. None of it shows on your face. Every system you have is redirected toward one job, getting through the next 30 seconds intact. There's nothing left over for a calm, articulate response. The stillness isn't emptiness. It's every resource you have, pointed at survival instead of speech. None of this got installed randomly. A shutdown response has a history, and once you see where yours came from, the rest starts to make sense. The first route is simple. Somewhere the fight or the exit wasn't actually available to you. Maybe you were a kid in a house where arguing back got you in worse trouble. Maybe raising your voice only made the other person louder, so you learned that talking made things worse, not better. Maybe you were in a room, at any age, where leaving wasn't an option and winning wasn't either. When both usable circuits are blocked, the body doesn't leave you defenseless. It reaches for the third one. That's the part worth sitting with. Freezing wasn't a failure to fight or flee. It was your nervous system finding the one option that was actually still on the table and using it well enough that you're here to think about it now. The second route is about repetition. The switch got practiced until it got fast. The first time your system chose shutdown, it was probably slow, effortful, almost a last resort. But nervous systems are efficient. Every repeat gets faster, more automatic, until eventually it doesn't wait for you to run out of options. It just goes there first, sometimes before you've even registered that the conversation turned into an argument at all. That's why the shutdown can feel instant now, even in arguments that aren't actually dangerous. The switch isn't broken, it's just extremely well trained, flipping on a threat level that used to be real and hasn't fully updated yet. The third route lives in what your body learned to call an argument. If raised voices once upon a time reliably came before something frightening, your nervous system built a simple rule. Tone rising means danger rising. It doesn't wait to check whether that's true today. It just fires the alarm it was trained to fire. So a completely safe disagreement with someone who loves you can still trip the exact same breaker as an unsafe one did years ago. Your body isn't confused about the present moment. It's just still running a rule that hasn't been given a reason to update. The person across from you now might be the safest person you've ever known, and the breaker trips anyway because the rule was never about them specifically. So that's the mechanism. A switch you didn't choose, trained fast by repetition, tuned to a rule written a long time ago. Here's what actually helps. The first shift is naming it out loud the moment it starts. You don't need a speech. Just 4 words. Said as early as you can catch it. I'm shutting down. That sentence does something a blank stare can't. It tells the other person what's actually happening, instead of letting them guess. It also does something for you. Naming the state pulls a small amount of you back online, just enough to remember you have a choice about what happens next, instead of just disappearing into it. The second shift is building a pause before you need one. Decide before the next hard conversation on one exit line you'll actually use. I need 5 minutes and I'm coming back. Say it, then physically leave the room. Water on your face, a short walk, hands under a cold tap, anything that gives your body proof the threat has passed. This isn't avoidance. Avoidance never returns to finish the conversation. This does. The pause exists so you come back regulated, not so you escape the topic for good. The third shift is practicing disagreement on purpose, in small doses. Pick something low stakes. Which restaurant? Which route? Which show to watch next? Let yourself be mildly disagreed with and stay in your body while it happens. Small reps like this widen the gap between disagreement and danger on purpose at a pace your system can actually absorb. One low-stakes disagreement at a time. You're not trying to become someone who enjoys conflict. You're teaching an old alarm, one rep at a time, that not every raised voice is the one from years ago. Small, safe, repeated evidence is the only language that alarm actually listens to. The fourth shift is finishing the conversation instead of just surviving it. Once you're regulated again, go back. Not to relitigate everything, just to say the one thing that got lost. I froze earlier, and here's what I actually meant to say. That sentence turns a shutdown into a delay instead of an ending, and it tells the other person the conversation was never actually abandoned. A circuit breaker that keeps tripping doesn't need to be ripped out of the wall. It needs the load taken off the line, one circuit at a time, until it can carry what you're asking of it. Your system isn't broken, it's just still wired for a house that doesn't exist anymore, running rules written for rooms you don't live in now. You didn't choose this switch, but you get to help it update. Understanding people like you is what still psychology is for. If this found you at the right time, subscribe. There are more people in that same blank second than you'd think, and this is where they figure themselves out. The shutdown was never you failing the moment. It was your body protecting you the only way it had left. This is still psychology.